the healthy and good place that we need to be. All right. Any questions on that? Great. So let's go to some Purim. I'm doing this from Sichas of the Rebbe called Moyadim, Shaרי Moyadim, the pathways of the holidays. It's in Hebrew, so I'm giving over from here these teachings. So we began yesterday with the question that we know that the story of Purim is something that is an eternal teachings, and therefore we need to understand how all of the details of the story are an eternal teaching. Firstly, we need to understand the beginning of the Megillah that tells us about Achashvarosh and his great power and his great wealth and the party they made for 180 days. The gist of the story of Purim is a decree against the Jewish people and the annulment of that decree and the triumph of the Jewish people. And hence, the story of Purim. Like the old saying goes, they tried to kill us. We won. Let's eat. Right? Let's celebrate. So every element of the story should fit in with that. Should fit in, first of all, as a narrative, because any good writer keeps their story tight. They don't start off with something that is superfluous to the narrative that you want to bring across, to the storyline that is integral to the essence of the message. That's firstly. But here in Torah, it's even more so. Why? Because Torah comes from the word Horah. It's a lesson. It's a guide in our lives. It's supposed to guide our lives. Well, if it's supposed to guide our lives, then that means in every detail of the story, there's a guidance here to teach us something. So, we understand in much of the narrative how it is that way. We know that Mordechai didn't bow down to Haman. We understand there's an important lesson to learn there. We understand that Mordechai comes to Esther and says, maybe the only reason you're the queen and you're in this position is because you can bring Revach v'Hatzalah, you can bring salvation to the people, and you can bring the redemption. We understand, the narrative in it, and we understand the lesson there. But what's the lesson in the beginning of the story of his great wealth, of his great, party that he makes, and also with all the great detail of it. So we then began to speak about looking at our lives, and we could see something that's interesting. That, right now we're spending productive, wholesome, holy, good time in learning Torah. But when we think about, our day, 24 hours, of 6 to 8 hours is of sleep. So it's a quarter of a third of your life isn't something that we understand we need to sleep in order that we can function properly. But it just seems so by the by, so secondary, in life's value. It doesn't, for those who, dedicate their lives to changing the world for good, like, I'm sleeping 8 hours of it? Like, what's going on over here? And then add to that all the time that you've got to eat and you've got to do other functional things that we know we have to do. But it's a little odd. Why are so many things that in our lives are only so secondary, so not valueless, I wouldn't say. Again, we understand the functional part of it, but it seems like, it's not an essential thing to real living. And you got to eat, but like that's not essential, right? I mean, it's essential that you have life, but not essential to your purpose of life. So we need to understand that. But on the other hand, we understand that God created it that way. And he creates me this way, and he creates life that way, that, I'm not like a colt that, just born this morning and this afternoon already roaming, roaming the fields and being able to take care of myself. But, it's taken me many years to be able to learn to take care of myself. I don't know if my mother still thinks I could. I'm not certain. Anyways, so we see that life is that way from early childhood until we become productive people. We see our day is that way, but God made it that way. So obviously it must be part of the plan. It must be part of it must be essential. It can't just be like this means to the end only, right? Furthermore, if we look further, we could see we don't have to go further, but we can even look at our body. And on one hand, we see different functioning parts that belong to a complete whole. But yet, if you look at the detail of each functioning part, you see something very, like one extreme to another. You have a head, you have the torso, which is the main part is the heart, and your feet. Your head, it's cool inside there with the liquids. And not only that, to use your head properly, to think something through, what do you need to be? Calm, cool, collected, right? The heart is the opposite. The heart is throbbing, right? Its feelings are powerful. Feelings are heated up, the complete opposite. And then, of course, you have the legs, the movement. Whereas the head, there is no movement. And as a matter of fact, when you want to really use your head, what do you got to do? Usually you don't move so much. You're sitting there like this and concentrating, trying to get whatever you need to get. You're trying to, because you need the calmness of the mind in order that you could understand and develop whatever thoughts and ideas you need to, right? Where the feet, its whole idea is the opposite, movement, So we see disparities within our very being, but yet we are one complete person, right? We see complete opposites, but yet we understand, because we experience life, that all of this, when they are functioning properly, they are enhancing each other. So the mind in its cool collectiveness can, feed the heart the right passion that it needs to have, that can move the legs and dance on Purim, because it's Purim, right? So they all function in a cohesive, beautiful way to bring that idea further. So with that idea, let's go to the story of the Megillah. Is that clear? Any questions on that? Okay. So as we said, the emphasis in the story of the Megillah is that we should learn a lesson in our personal lives. So the story begins by King Achashvarosh. It was in the days of Achashvarosh until the very end of the story, which the king Achashvarosh, he placed taxes upon the land and upon the far off islands. So all of this is the, so to speak, the various time periods and the years of our lives, that all different types of things occur that seemingly don't have a connection between them. When we're speaking about the decree of Haman and the nullifying of that decree through Mordechai and Esther, those things happened, one juxtaposed to the other. You don't need to be a very wise person to be able to find the connection between them. It's pretty apparent. However, when we're talking about different time periods, different episodes, the beginning of the kingship of Achashvarosh, the party that he sets up for his servants and for his ministers and his servants, or the time period after the miracle of Purim, that Achashvarosh places the taxes upon the people. First glance, they don't seem to be connected. These incidences, one with the miracle of Purim, right? And as the Rebbe says that in our lives, how many things do we see that they are connected with the theme of our life, the purpose of our lives? Sometimes we see very clearly we can see how one thing led to another and led to another. You can see the domino effect. You can see the divine providence. You can see how the hand of God is, connecting the dots. We sometimes experience that. But so many things in our lives, we don't experience it that way, right? Just like we mentioned earlier. The eating and drinking that you need to do, the sleeping and all those things, But how does that fit in? So that's the parallel that we're making over here between, our lives and from the story of the Megillah. So it comes the Megillah, the Rebbe says, which is Torah's Emes, the Torah of truth, and tells and teaches us that all of the details that happen in those events are happenings, are events that are part of the Megillah from the beginning of Achashvarosh, that he is king from Hoidu until Cush, 127 provinces that he was a ruler, till the time period after the story where he places the taxes upon the people. All of these are part of a complete body, a complete wholesome functioning body that has a head, that leads to a heart, that leads to the feet, and that all of it is tied in together in a perfect unison. One level after another, one incident after another, as we will see. And likewise, as the Rebbe says, that's how we have to see our day. That's how we have to see our lifetime. There's no accidental or incidental. There is no things are just by the by, and they're not part of the whole story of your life. It may seem on the surface, it's not a big deal. Move on. Next thing, next event, next, big thing. No, that's a mistake. From the moment that your mother and father brought you into this world until you become a complete individual, as a business person that you might be, a great Torah scholar that you might be, whatever it is that you do in your life, it is all intertwined. It is all essential. Now, of course, as smart as we might be with the millions of events and occurrences and things that happen, we don't see that. But this is what Torah is telling us, the Torah of truth, that all of these details and small little things that happen in my life, they're connected. They have an effect, one event to another, and all of them become the complete Megillah of your life. It's your tractate of your life. All of it is there serving the purpose of what you were created for. So that's just the backdrop now, right? That the Rebbe is setting up for us, and how, first of all, we need to see the story of the Megillah, but more importantly, that the lesson is that it's teaching me that that's how I have to see my life. Nothing is by the by, nothing is incidental, nothing is just like, a secondary thing that is that doesn't mean that there aren't things that are more important and more, in a sense, but it all ties in that it's, like the brain obviously is more important than, than a finger. Your heart's more important than your toenail, granted. But, all of it is necessary for a complete functioning and healthy individual. So the same thing is over here. So, if we leave it at that right now, we just go away with that notion, Dayenu, that's like, wow, that's amazing. That's, the truth that we need to live with, and a reality to really, so when like small little things happen and we can put it into the bigger context and the bigger picture and see that that's, one of the atoms or the cells of my body, there's so many cells, but yeah, every cell has a part of bringing me to a complete person. So let's explain this further. And in the story of Purim, of course. So the greatness of Achashvarosh as king was that he was from Hoidu until Kush. From, as I mentioned, Hoidu is India, it refers to, and Kush is Ethiopia. Now, what's the importance of knowing this? What are we gaining? What's the value over here of understanding this? Because it's telling us first of all, on one level, it's telling us the great peril that the Jewish people experienced then. Why? Because we all lived under his thumb, under his rulership. All 127 provinces, that's where the Jews lived at the time. And therefore, it was possible to have a thought to destroy, kill, and obliterate all of the Jewish people, God forbid. Because we were under his rulership, all the Jews. And of course, if that wasn't the case, then, we wouldn't be, what's the word? The peril wouldn't have been as great. But this is what it was. Furthermore, he says, we need to be exacting on the fact that it is from Hoidu until Kush. In other words, the Megillah didn't have to tell us exactly from Hoidu to Kush, because it just said 127 provinces. I understood that, at that time, that's where the Jewish people lived, and therefore the peril was for the distinction of the Jewish people with this decree. Chassidus explains, the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah, he explains, now what's the difference between Hoidu and Kush? They are from one extreme to another. And the Rebbe says, from their name, you can know something about them. Hoidu comes from the word hoidah, which means an acknowledgement, it means glorifying, right? Beauty, referring to light. On the opposite end of that, it's kush. Kush is the opposite. It means darkness, black. That's what the word means. So from light to darkness. What does that mean? That these names of these countries also shows on as a name shows on something about the person who has that name, quality of a person with such a name. And so from the term hoidu, meaning people that are more upright, is the term that that are more upright, and from kush, people that are not as upright. And what's the point over here that the Megillah is making on a mystical level, at least? This is not a simple understanding. This is on a mystical level. That this King Achashvarosh was able to have dominion over, usually Matzah min is minai, that one kind finds its own kind. In other words, we all find our type. The type that I am is the type of people that I will be attracted to, right? Everybody's attracted to their type. You're not attracted to something that's not of your, if you're a skier, you'll probably, and you love skiing, you'll probably attract other people who are skiers, right? If you're, more philosophical in your quest of life and more learning type of person, and you're not the go out and the skiing sporting type, then you're going to find people of your own ilk that are more interested in reading a book and learning about an idea and so on and so forth. So what do we see here about Achashvarosh? Is that one extreme nation to another type of an extreme nation, he was able to have dominion over. In other words, to have rulership over them. And to be able to bring those peoples together. And we see that actually in the party that he made, because in the party that he made, he said he gave everybody to drink, and every person according to their desire, according to their nature, according to their will, according to what they're accustomed to. And it was, and all the people that came from all of these nations, right? The leaders of these nations, they all came, and they felt that it was an honor to come. So this all brings out how great the decree was, so dangerous for the Jewish people. But we first need to preface. In other words, the fact that he had this capability of bringing different types of people together, and that they all came, right? So remember, most people, I'm going to gather people. So it's going to be people that are more, feel a personal connection to me. Other people not. But he was able to gather people from one extreme to another extreme, as brought out from Haydn Kush. He's just emphasizing that idea. That brings out then, ultimately, if he's able to, in other words, I don't know if this is a good example, but maybe it is a good example. Hitler Yamach Shemoy, right? He had an amazing talent on how he brought together, whether it was the elite, professors, right, and intellectuals of Germany, together with the simple, the simpletons. He was able to speak across the board and inspire and be able to bring together real opposites under his influence. Of course, that's what makes it so much more dangerous, made it so much more dangerous. It wasn't like he just had, what you would call just, I don't know, call it, the scum of of society that he was able to inspire. He was able to inspire, the elite of his society. That's unique, right? Which is interesting. We're not going to go there, but you see in America what's going on today, right? You have complete opposites. You have one leader who can only inspire one segment, and another leader can only inspire another segment, right? But there's not too much crossover. They're not Achashvarosh. Achashvarosh was able to do that, right? That's and of course, since Achashvarosh was not a good guy, just like Hitler Yamach Shemoy was horrific, what does that mean? Ultimately, he's going to be more dangerous. Is that clear? And this is the point I was making over here, is that he was be able to unite and bring together under his not just rulership but under his influence, these opposites, and that they were all were not just subordinate, but were felt it as an honor to be of service for whatever his desires were. Ultimately, this made the decree so much harsher and more difficult to deal with. Sorry, 1 second. So what comes out is that, so when Haman came and finally, rubber stamped everything, that there's a decree against the Jewish people, as he weighed out, the 20,000 silver coins to pay off the king, so, as it were. What do we have here? That then it came out, the message to every province and the leader of those provinces, who all felt it was a great honor to be of service to the king in his bidding. And now is coming a decree that is stamped, sealed by from the king's office, from Achashvarosh. Of course, even though we're talking about different types of people, right? Whereas today you'll have one type of people who say, "Oh, go after the Jews," and another, and most communities, and you'll have other people say, no, that's not legitimate. That's anti-Semitism. Here you didn't have that. Here you had all completely felt honored by the fact that they're included in this decree to annihilate the Jewish people. Any questions? Clear? We will conclude tomorrow the lesson from this, the importance of what this means for us in our lives, and further in some of the finer details of what to take out from here. All right, folks. Everybody smiling? Everything's good? Wonderful. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day. See you tomorrow. Be well.